Yo, what's up, Power Book 4 Force fans? I'm sitting here with Elias. I'm talking all about Simon McDougal on Force every Sunday night on Starz.
Phil, welcome to the cave.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. When the listeners and viewers tune into this interview, they can see you on Power Book 4, the new spin-off Force.
Yeah,
As Simon McDougal, man. It's going to be a fun ride for you so far.
absolutely. And the fans are awesome. Like, I think that's the thing mostly that has really surprised me about the show
Yeah.
is just the fan base is amazing. And the, the amount they've already been talking about Simon. I've only been in one episode so far. Is great. I love it.
That's great. And before we dive into more of the show, I want to get to know a little bit more about you. Man, like, what made you get into this industry? I know you grew up in Chicago and everything, big
Yeah.
theater, acting over there. Like, what made you get into it?
I did a play my senior year of high school and I got hooked, and I did the play on a dare. I was a
Okay.
sports guy. So track, cross country, wrestled, baseball was my thing, really. A friend of mine's like, I'm gonna audition for this play, and he was doing it at kind of as a goof, you
Okay.
know. And then I was like, well, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. And then we both got cast. And he was like one of my best friends. So then we both got hooked. But yeah, that was it. I did that, and I thought to myself, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
I don't think my parents believed me at the time. But then they got to eventually see that I was, obviously serious about it. So
Was there ever a backup plan? Did you ever tell your parents you're having to go this route, and if something happens,
no,
no, you just went
no,
for it?
never a backup plan. I was going to play baseball.
Okay.
That's what originally I was going to do. And but that I just, I sort of knew one year of like junior college that wasn't going to be my lot. And so I just, when I was hooked on the acting thing, though, I just stuck with that.
Is there anybody that influenced you, like that you looked up to in the acting world also?
Yeah, David Mamet, who was one of, not necessarily an actor, but he's the one who sort of like changed the trajectory of my, like, even for me to even have a career and be sitting with you right now. So he was a guest professor, went to theater school in Chicago and Roosevelt University. And I was on a scholarship and I was failing out of it because it was my first year. And I think like when I decided I wanted to be an actor, got into theater school, I didn't know any other way to really get into acting, but I just really wanted to be like Robert De Niro in Goodfellas or Joe Pesci. Like I didn't really give a shit about Shakespeare. I didn't know who he was, the Greek tragedy, all of this stuff that we were studying. I just didn't get it. It was going over my head. I felt lost. I was like with all these kids who came from performing arts high schools, which I didn't even know existed.
Wow.
I'm like from the south side of Chicago. I'm like, I don't know, you just go to public school. What's a performing arts high school? I didn't get it. And I didn't come from that kind of upbringing. It was very blue collar. So anyway, I was in my first year of theater school, failing out, losing my gonna lose my scholarship. And so David Mamet, he wrote Glengarry Glen Ross, like one of our greatest American playwrights and screenwriters. Wrote Hoffa, The Untouchables.
Yeah.
And so he was just a guest professor, and he knew that I was struggling, and he gave me a copy of Glengarry Glen Ross, and he said, read this, and then let's talk next week. And I sort of threw the play. I went home and like threw the play aside, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read this play, whatever. I was but I was working at Blockbuster Video. And so I was restocking videos on the shelf, and I restock a copy of Glengarry Glen Ross. It's got Al Pacino's face, who I love, Jack Lemmon, Alec Baldwin. And I thought to myself, oh shit, that's the play I have. I was like, that's my professor. I didn't even know who he was. You know, I
Like
just thought he
fate.
was just some teacher. Yeah. And so he was someone I really looked up to because he talked a lot about acting and what an actor
Mm,
should do and shouldn't do. And I've always he's always like my barometer for the business and the industry. And it wasn't an acting class he was teaching per se, but he taught me so much about acting. So I would say probably David Mamet. Yeah.
oh, that's awesome. You mentioned Al Pacino. I was doing some research on you. What's that little story that you met Al Pacino because you wrote a script also?
Yeah, I wrote this awful one act play in college. In theater school, I decided to switch my acting degree to a directing degree.
Okay.
For some reason, I had it in my mind that it was more valuable.
Mm,
Frankly, any kind of acting or directing or writing degree is not valuable. It means zero at the end of the day once you get into the industry,
yeah.
unless you want to teach. So, but I had it in my mind. I was like, I'm going to get a directing degree. So I had to direct a play. And I decided I was going to write a play. And I was a huge fan of Al Pacino. And he did this terrible movie called Author in like the 80s where he played a
Okay.
player. Awful movie. It was like when his career was on the down. So I wrote this play and I titled it Al Pacino, Al Pacino. So I'm like putting it on. And then that night next door to my theater school is a movie premiere of one of his movies. And I find out he's going to be there. So I basically push myself into like the press line where all the photographers are. He comes walking down the carpet and I just like jump onto the red carpet and I go, I wrote this play about, and he like stopped. And I don't even think I knew I made a scene, but I didn't realize it because I was just like here, and I gave him a copy of my awful, terrible play. And I had a friend who was at the premiere and he said he had it the whole night. He was holding on to it. He went up on stage and he was talking. He had it in his hand. He was sitting. He had it in his hand. So I don't know if Al ever read it.
You got to find out. You got to
Al.
do some digging around now. You got to find
I
out if you ever
know.
read that.
I know. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but
So,
I'm a huge fan of Al Pacino.
oh yeah,
Huge, massive. Speaking of Glengarry Glen Ross, I mean, he was just a massive fan of all of his work. I got to study years later down the road with Al's acting mentor, this guy named Jack Waltzer, who's an original actor studio guy. And I was fortunate enough to be allowed into his class because he doesn't really take new students. He's ancient. He's like 300 years old, but he was in the original version of 12 Angry Men on Broadway.
oh
But
wow,
he was Al's teacher, and I got to teach. And I talked with Jack a lot about Al, and he told me a lot about him as an actor and all that stuff. So it was a little bit connected.
what's up? Yeah, there you go. Man,
Yeah.
you never know. One day you might meet him again, and you might say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I do remember that night, and I do remember reading it." Or he's
Yeah.
gonna tell you threw it in the trash. You never know.
I mean, like I remember it because it was so terrible. I mean, it was really bad. It was awful. Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's jump into your new roles as Simon McDougal on Power Force and Power Book Force. Was this like an audition? How did this happen for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I know Joe.
Okay.
He's one of my longest friends in this business, and just a very, very good friend of mine in general. My writing partner in some instances. We've written some scripts together. I knew that the show was going to be coming along, so casting reached out when they got the pilot. I knew that I wanted to be on the show, but they said there was nothing right for me on the show. So I asked for the script and I read it, and I read this Simon McDougal character, and I'm thinking to myself, an Irish guy who has a drinking problem, who lives in Chicago, and it's like, I was just like, this is. I know I grew up around this. This is totally my role, and they wouldn't read me for it. So I had to reach out to Joe, and I said, Joe, they said I'm not right for this, and he was like, that's insane. You're 1,000% right for it. So then he wrote a note to the showrunner, Robert Munich, and then they saw me. but I had to still go through the entire audition process, and there was a few of those, and then I finally got the part. But that's how I got it. And then originally, again, I wasn't
Wow.
thought of. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So how did, after you got the role and everything, and you said, you've been around that before, but how did you prepare to play this role?
That's a great question. I was trying to find my way into it. It was kind of in many ways a dream role because, I always, again, my great uncle was he had his own crew in the outfit in Chicago, which is unlike the East Coast, and you have the mafia, Chicago, you have the outfit. And so he had his own crew, and he's Irish, and you could do that. And like I said, so I grew up around this, and one of my favorite TV series of all time is The Sopranos. And I always wished I could be on The Sopranos. I thought, well, this is it. This is as close as I'm going to get to that, playing this character. So I was trying to find my way into it. And I was watching an episode of, I'm not into reality shows, but I love to cook. So Gordon Ramsay has this show, Kitchen Nightmares, that I'll just I'm just super into. And I was just sitting there watching it, and there was this episode about this dude. I don't know if he had a restaurant. I don't know if it was a restaurant in like Long Island or whatever, but he was basically like a Simon McDougal, like looking like Italian mafioso dude. And the customers would like walk in. If they complained, he'd like try to like fight them. He would kick them out of the restaurant. He'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here! Get out!" He was like, the dude was out of his fucking mind. And I was like, that's Simon McDougal, a dude who tries to fight his own customers at a restaurant. So it was a little bit of that. And then I wanted to, when I was reading the script, I thought there's not a whole lot of like, I mean, Joe's like Mr. Cool on the show. That's the idea of Tommy. He has great one-liners, right? But other than that, in the scenes I was in, I was like, well, how do I bring some comedy and some levity, some, to these scenes, because Shane's character, Vic, is very like, straight. So I'm like, if he's a straight man, I'm going to go a little bit like sad clown. So I was looking at like, kind of like, what Tony Sirico does, like, Paulie Walnuts on Sopranos, so it was like a combo of the dude on Kitchen Nightmares. I'll have to figure out what episode it is. I mean, it's hilarious to watch, but also scary. But on The Sopranos, I sort of looked at that relationship that Sirico had with his character to Gandolfini. And I thought, I want that. I want every scene that I'm in, when I come on screen, I want people to laugh.
Yeah.
I want them, even though Simon's a scary dude, I want people to laugh at him. And that's effect has been fully achieved. So, yeah.
And you mentioned, like the fighting and everything, like you had, or you watched episode 1 last night, and you have a fight in the first,
right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, now, was that you, or was that a stunt?
That was all Joe and I. Wow. So originally it was like this pre-visualized fight. Joe and I were just talking about it. He was in town recently. We were telling someone asked us about it, and we were talking about, but it was pre-visualized already by a stunt team, and we really weren't given a lot of time for rehearsal.
Really?
And I think, certainly our long-standing relationship of 27 years, like this was a huge moment for us, this fight scene. And we weren't really given the time to prep or do it right. And they wanted to use the stunt team. And so, Joe sort of insisted, like, let us go for it. They used the stunt team for a little bit. It didn't really work. I don't think the director was in love with it per se. But they gave Joe and I time, and we basically choreographed that whole thing, and we did it all ourselves. So I mean, we really took the falls, and I've never done my own stunt work, so we just went for it. And I knew that I could trust Joe, and he could trust me, but we were going for it. Like when we were swinging, like Joe literally, like, I remember one of the takes, Joe's like, really try to hit me, Donlon, like really try. Yeah, I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yep. And now Joe is was a amateur boxer and like very good, you know, and won a lot of fights. So I know Joe, when he says it, he's not just like, you know, he's not like some actor saying it. Like, I'm like, okay, this, you know, Joe, if he's saying it, he means it. He really, he's going to be all right. So we were really, I mean, granted, I mean, it's choreographed. We knew when the punches were going to come. But the thing I love most about that scene is that it's there's no close-ups. It's like mediums to wides. So it's like you really see it. So you buy it, I think, as opposed to cutting to a close-up of a fist, you know, and whatever, or an arm swinging, which is what a lot of fights will do. But like if you look at the old school stuff, like in the westerns with like John Wayne, these are big wide shots with like 20 dudes, chairs are flying and they're not cutting. So you're like, these guys are really, you know, much like professional wrestling. Yeah, it's like you still, I mean, okay, you're not taking a punch to the face, but you still, like, you're getting a chair broken over your back. I still got thrown into the dumpster. I still hit my head into the I mean, I tried not to, but I'd still sort of knock my head in sometimes. To be thrown against the railing, I'm really thrown against Joe threw me. You know, and so it was cool. Yeah, we were proud of that scene for sure.
After episode 1 aired, like I don't, did you go on social media at all? Because like if you typed up on Twitter Simon McDougal, they were like fans were all over the place for your character though.
I know. Yeah. So I found out I was trending on Twitter, or Simon was trending on Twitter on like Sunday and Monday. I had people sending me screenshots and I saw them all and I loved it. I really thought it was amazing. And I was going back to how I was crafting the character. It was like, I wanted a guy who you could love to hate. And so I felt like that was achieved. People really like, God, I hate this guy, but they kind of have a little soft place in their heart for Simon McDougal. But I heard on an interview I did, which was like some Power Universe interview. And they've been doing these interviews since the original series. And they said that I guess my character made the like most hated the quickest on any of the Power characters ever in the universe. Like people were like, that I want that dude to die like now.
So you did your job right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any like weird like DMs from like fans or anything about the character?
Oh, yeah, completely. Well, what's funny is that Gabrielle, who plays Gloria, the bartender, she told me that she was getting DMs from dudes saying, like, I'll take care of Simon for you. Yeah, like she's like, this is not even real. What is going on here? So 1,000%. It was yeah, I got like super weird DMs, and on Twitter, and I would engage with the fans, but after a while, sometimes I get a little like, I was just like, well, guys, I mean, back off. Like someone's like, you deserve to fucking die. I'm like, okay, all right, okay.
Block.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Someone wrote me and said, could I follow you around and video you walking around every day? Some weird stuff. I mean, so the DMs have been extreme, like just in general, since the episode airing, they've been very odd. Wow. Yeah. Right.
How long were you on set for? How many episodes did you film for the first season?
Well, I can't go into that for my arc. So I'm sort of sworn to secrecy on all of that. But you'll see me a lot. Okay. And I was on set quite a lot. Yep.
Now, what's next for you now? Any other projects that you can tell the listeners, the viewers about that you're working on or you're about to work on?
Absolutely. We'll be hopefully announcing in the next couple of weeks, but I'm also a writer. So I'm developing a show based on, if you get the new issue of Rolling Stone that's out right now, there's an article called Undercover Nazi of this FBI agent who broke open like the biggest white supremacy ring to date in America. So we're developing that article into a series. So we've been pitching the last 2 weeks, and we've got some suitors,
Okay.
and we'll be making a decision soon. So that would be I'd be producing that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's my next thing that's happening right now, and then looking for the next acting job or whatever comes my way.
You say pitching, isn't it great? Now we have network TV, but we also have like a billion streaming apps that you have a good shot of getting your projects on now.
Oh yeah, there's so many outlets for content, and streaming's everything now.
Right.
The networks are, I think I'm finding in these pitches, they're not really pitches, they're people pitching us as to why they want to do it, which is an interesting position to be in. But they're finding the networks are really, they're at the bottom, and you get, and it's really these, like Netflix is like the king, and then there's everybody else.
Right. So you
never
know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's great. I think it's amazing because we just have more content than ever. And I think that's pretty cool.
Phil, lastly, how can the listeners and the viewers find you on social media?
Well, on Instagram, Phil.Donlon. So Donlon. And then on Twitter, it's Phil Donlon1. And that's my 2 spots. I haven't made it onto any of the other ones yet, so I'm not that cool.
Come on, say Simon. Everybody wants to be friends with him.
Absolutely, yeah, 1,000%.
Phil, this was great. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.